These forms are also often long. Like you have to ask people for their name, for their email, for their company, and all this other stuff to make sure that that process, the reason these forms get long is because people are trying to reduce the work on the BDR, SDR processing end. If they can get more information from you that's accurate up front, then maybe they can automate more of the rules that filter it on the back end. But we also know the push and pull of the longer a form is, the lower the likelihood that someone actually goes through the time or effort to fill it out, especially if you ask questions that they don't know off the top of their head. So here, I want to also emphasize, all we did was look at full name and company name. And what Clay is coming in here to do is a whole bunch of other things that are at the end going to actually result in Anthony getting a LinkedIn message from me that's personalized in the way that I just described. So these things that we just talked about, right, where first I might need to find Anthony's LinkedIn profile. I'm using an AI-based web scraper, the prompt of which you can see here. And this comes back to kind of what Anthony was talking about earlier today, where prompt engineering is a skill that I think people will need to learn. And I think it will become easier and easier to learn and will get more and more abstract as AI systems get better. But understanding how to speak to AI like it's a third grader, but expect it to give you the output of a PhD student is a natural talent that you have to figure out. And that's kind of how we format these prompts here. We tell it what to do. We tell it what the results for criteria and success are. We need to tell it also what the results for failure are, which is just as important. And then give it the step-by-step process that we would probably be doing otherwise manually ourselves. I don't want to spend my day taking someone's name, their company name, copy pasting it into Google, and then typing in LinkedIn. I have way better things to do with my time, and I bet everyone else in the world does too. That's where I think these AI systems come really in handy. You can see the work it does right here. My favorite thing about this AI web scraper that we've built as well, it gives you its result, but like a really eager to please employee, it also tells you what the reasoning is behind the result. It gives you and shows its work and the steps taken, and you can see its confidence as well. So you can actually build really, really sophisticated, sort of automated manual steps with this type of an agent. And we did indeed find the right Anthony. So then what we do is we take that LinkedIn URL and we extract a bunch of information from it. So I can truly access almost anything that's actually available on the profile. You have to imagine that this varies depending on the privacy level of the profile and how filled out it might be. But from this, I can see that Anthony is the CEO and founder of LeanScale. I can also see he was the VP of Revenue Operations before that. And I've actually extracted here into a cell just all of his previous experience. So I can see at a glance that he was at Boast AI for a bit. He was at LexisNexis, which I actually didn't know until just now. We should talk about that at some point. Emailage, Phoenix Children's Hospital. You too have a very interesting eclectic background, I would say, my friend. And I can get all sorts of things, right? Just from that personalized LinkedIn profile information. Again, this has all happened automatically from that form fill. Now I'm doing a couple of things here to just check that I actually have the right domain to try and find his potential email. And then we get into what was really the bread and butter of Clay before AI really came out, right? Of the world in which this, I cannot emphasize this more strongly than the way I'm trying to right now. These 6, 7 columns right here on their own, I think automate what was the equivalent of like 1 to 2 hours of work for people and custom systems in a pre-Clay waterfalls world. Because what people had to do is take the data that they had, let's say it's name, company name, and website, upload it to this first data provider, Prospeo, for all the people that they have, get back the result, filter it down to only the results that still weren't found, because your coverage is really important and not every data provider works again. Then you have to re-upload it to the second one and then filter, and then the third one and then filter. And doing that, like no one wants to spend their day uploading and downloading CSVs for a living. There are, again, far more intellectually stimulating things for humans to be doing. And so what we're doing here is automating that process where we will try the first data provider. Only if it doesn't work do we move on to the second, the third, the fourth. And you can see that even just in these 3 rows. When found in the first one, nothing else runs. When not found, the other one runs in Substack. And the other thing specifically about emails that I'll actually just show real quick is we're also validating them with your own sort of choice of email validation on the back end. So if I unhide all these columns, you'll notice that for this first one here, the validate email ran, and because it was found and because it was valid, then we actually put the email in this final validated work email column. If we actually found an email from a data provider, but found that that email domain is invalid, which is often the case when someone has just switched jobs or might just have a different email, or the data provider is just out of date, because I don't think anyone can keep up with the pace or volume of data evolution today. You don't want that fake data or incorrect data in your system. And so we'll actually still mark it incorrect and keep going down the waterfall to try and find the most reliable, accurate email.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it does save hours of work, and also just making sure you have accurate data. It's so important to be able to do this type of work.
Exactly. And again, right, like I just want to keep emphasizing, this has all happened since I just filled out that form. I'm just walking through what happened. Last thing so now we've gotten a bunch of information about Anthony as a person. Let's also get some information about the company that he works at. We know it's LeanScale. We can see that the current employee count on LinkedIn is about 18. We can see the total size ranges 11 to 50. And then I have a few different headcount pieces here that if I wanted to filter for people who work at a company just within these titles, I can do that. So right now, this form is filtered to 3 companies where nobody really has traditional sales titles. So we see nothing. And then the other thing that I can do is look for titles within a bucket that don't have all these other kind of keywords that often bloat headcount on LinkedIn. So I don't want the creators, the experts, the mentors, the advisors who I know don't actually work full-time at a company. Finding accurate headcount, I've discovered, is such an important thing to do for large companies. And LinkedIn is often inaccurate because people will associate themselves with a company that don't actually work at that company.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is like Pavilion. So everybody's part of the Pavilion community, and they put it on their LinkedIn. So it would show that Pavilion has like 10,000 members. I've never even thought about doing that. That's huge.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, and I think that's kind of you can customize the data you want to get in whatever way you can, and then get the data that just you need based on the criteria you're looking for. So like that's something I really like showing people because headcount really matters. Pavilion's a great example, to your point. I think Slack actually has a similar thing as well. So I often tell people, if we think about the processes we're going through of I need to find data, or I need to find people and companies that I want to get more information about. I need to get more information about those people and companies. I then need to write messages to those people and companies, and then I need to sync all that data to my CRM. What we just walked through was the finding, quote unquote. In this case, that was just an inbound form fill, but we can go through the sourcing in a little bit. Then we got a lot more data about Anthony and where he works. Now we're going to move into the writing that personalized copy, where again, I would say for the times where you have reps doing highly creative, highly personalized messages, that's not necessarily what AI is meant for. What AI is really good at is that like pseudo human personalization, or what I earlier referred to as elementary personalization, where all I want the human to do is just go look at the company website, just tell me, what does the company do? Who do they sell to? And write like a simple line based on that. Let's use AI to do that. And then I'll jump into how you can try to use AI after this in like a more personalized way. What I'm trying to do here is scrape the website just like I would tell a human to do, and then tell AI specifically just the kind of formatting of the lines that I want it to personalize. And I'm going to quickly emphasize this as well as just what I think is like a general best practice for using AI, no matter what the tool is today. AI is really good at these fixed, discrete problems when you give it a lot of context, because then the output is repeatable and reliable, right? The thing that I think we often forget in the generative AI world is that if you don't narrow down the solution space for a generalized tool to something very specific, what a generative tool is going to give you is generative answers. And 99% of the time, people are trying to use AI for automation in particular. You don't want that much variability in what AI is going to be doing. You want it to be repeatable, predictable, and not sort of just give you these outlier responses. So generating sentences or phrases at a time is far, far more effective than trying to generate whole emails from single prompts.